At the beginning of June, I headed to Pennsylvania for 9 days to visit with family and tour the countryside. At a minimum of 440 miles, Carlisle is just a bit too far to comfortably do in a single-day trip on the bike. On the way down and back, I broke it up into 2 days, stopping in Binghamton, New York on the way down, and Milford, PA on the way back. While in Carlisle, we spent 3 days touring around the countryside, to Gettysburg, McConnellsburg to the west, and the covered bridges of Perry County. As I was packing up for the trip, a massive storm system was moving up the East Coast. To avoid the lightning and heavy rain, I headed west over the Adirondacks towards Binghamton. I missed the lightning, but still got stuck in some light rain for several hours, and it was plenty wet. After a night of drying out in Binghamton, I headed south through northern Pennsylvania, past World's End State Park and Eaglesmere, through some beautiful countryside, down into southern Pennsylvania. Fortunately, my camera came on in my bag and the battery pretty much died, leaving me with just a few short clips before it was done for good. After the first couple hours, the skies cleared up and I had great weather the rest of the way to Carlisle. Nice clear weather like this makes putting up with all that rain totally worth it. On Sunday, we headed south to Gettysburg and the windy roads of the Catoctin Mountain Park. My brother Nate was still in town, so he and I doubled up, as did my parents, and we all headed down to Gettysburg through the orchards of Adams County. In Gettysburg, my aunt gave us a tour of the new Seminary Ridge Museum she's directing.
Quite a lot of nice guys.
We then did a brief tour of the battlefield before heading on our way. After Gettysburg, we continued south into Maryland and then wound our way back home via the windy roads of the Catoctin Mountains. After we crossed north into Pennsylvania, the landscape opened up into rolling hills covered with orchards.
Here, go ahead, Dad. Okay, we're here. It makes a different experience.
Yeah. You can enjoy each other's company.
Then 234 and... Yep. Okay. I think we kind of want to head home. It's getting kind of late. Yeah. Dog left and then an immediate right.
Southwest of Newville, Mennonite farms fill the broad Cumberland Valley, providing a buffer against the suburban sprawl that has filled the eastern half of Cumberland County. On Tuesday, my brother returned home to New York, and my parents and I saddled up to head west over the mountains to the windy roads near McConnellsburg. Even though it's only an hour west of my hometown, I'd never been to this part of Pennsylvania and was totally blown away by the beautiful bucolic scenery. Mountain switchbacks are almost always fun, except when there's oncoming traffic nearby.
Yep. Taking up half the lane.
Speaking of traffic, it comes in all shapes and sizes. Thursday, we headed north over the mountain to check out the covered bridges that cross Sherman's Creek in Perry County. Heading up Wagner's Gap takes you past one of the local icons, a yard filled with plush toys and stuffed animals propped up on every manner of kitsch imaginable. They sit out in all weather, and some of them have been there for years. One bridge down, 7 more to go.
Picture I'll tilted side.
You'll have to do it that way.
Hence the camelback's a little easier.
Yeah.
With 4 bridges down, we headed west from New Germantown, up to the top of the mountain to get in some more twisty turns, as well as a view of some virgin hemlock forests, some of the last left in Pennsylvania. The hemlock grove was about 2 miles up a steep gorge. It was easy to see why it had not been logged through all of the 1800s. It was a very pretty spot, and the trees were quite large as hemlocks go. I must say, having come from California the previous weekend, the scale was just not quite up to par with the California redwoods. With thunderstorms forecast and the sky beginning to darken, we finished up the remaining covered bridges and began to work our way home. On Friday it was time to head home, but my parents joined me for the first leg of the trip, up to Milford, PA. We took the scenic route to get there, stopping at Rickett's Glen, a beautiful state park west of Wilkes-Barre where 22 waterfalls tumble out of a high plateau into the valley below. From Rickett's Glen, we dropped into the valley in the rush hour traffic of Wilkes-Barre, then climbed the next ridge and headed east through the Poconos. Just before we got to Milford, it started to rain and we ended up seeing a small black bear along the road. Saturday was my final leg home, heading south of the Catskills and then north to Mount Equinox in southern Vermont. To top off a waterfall-focused spring, we stopped at the beautiful Raymondskill Falls just a mile from our hotel before heading out for the rest of the trip. Stopped in Ellenville for lunch, then crossed the mighty Hudson River at Rhinecliff. Back in Vermont, my next stop was to take the toll road up to the top of the massive Mount Equinox. In terms of pure riding excitement, this was one of the highlights of the trip. Watch my Mount Equinox video for an extended look at this portion of the ride. Manchester, Vermont is a picture postcard perfect town. So pretty, in fact, that even the gas stations are nice enough to live in. From Manchester, I took Route 30 through Danby up to West Paulet, then 133 north to West Rutland. The towns were few and far between, but the countryside was pretty and the traffic was minimal. There have been many lovely sights on this trip, but nothing quite compares with returning home to the green mountains bathed in the yellow light of the setting sun.